Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor, to discuss the political turmoil in Pakistan, the hostilities between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and their impact on India. It is our pleasure to welcome Lieutenant General Kamal Davar, an old veteran of both the 1965 and 1971 India-Pakistan wars. He was, in fact, injured in the 1965 war. It's fortunate that he survived the injury and is with us. He retired from the army as the founding Director General of the Defense Intelligence Agency and is currently the president of a new think tank, the Delhi Forum for Strategic Studies. Welcome to South Asia Monitor, sir.
Thank you very much, the South Asia Monitor team and Col Anil Bhat for your invite.
A lot has happened in the past year. I think the past year stands out for one as probably the worst for Pakistan in the decade, at least. And this time around, when the Afghani Taliban took charge of Afghanistan again, the scene was very different than it was the last time that they had, taken charge of Afghanistan. A very major difference that turned out was that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban became very close. And the Pakistan army started getting targeted fairly often and effectively by these two. And it's not only that, the Baluchis who have been, of Baluchistan, who've been under a lot of, they have faced a lot of trouble from the Pakistan army for decades. Their armed groups have targeted Pakistan army. Sir, I'll begin by asking you, could you throw some light on the political turmoil in Pakistan that we've seen? It was, I think, some unprecedented and most unexpected scenes that we saw, some years ago when Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI party ransacked the houses of some very senior Pakistan army officers. Sir.
Thank you once again, Anil and the South Asia Monitor team, for your invite to share my thoughts on our errant Western neighbor Pakistan, who was also born like us from the same womb of Mother India, but has and continues to follow consistently a myopic, self-destructive policy vis-a-vis India, for really speaking no benefit towards itself or the region. We all know the background of how India looms large in all of Pakistan's political and strategic formulations, and all Pakistan wishes to do is to seek an identity independent of India. That's fine. They are a sovereign nation. But they have totally discarded the vision, the inclusive and secular vision of their founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and all of Pakistan's humongous problems, this is my view, can be attributed to the evil and selfish, machinations of their deep state. And what is their deep state? It is the unholy trinity of the Pakistan army, the intelligence agencies, and the many terror consumes which they have trained, funded, and of course conceived to do all sorts of nefarious activities for which Pakistan today stands as a citadel of terrorism all across the world. It is not me or India saying so, it is the world which says so. And Mrs. Hillary Clinton made that famous statement in Pakistan that if you rear cobras in your backyard, one day they'll bite you. And today, if you look at the geopolitical situation in the region, exactly the same thing is happening. I wonder whether the Pakistanis will understand what they've been up to. Now, today, as you asked me uh, about the current turmoil, let me come to that. You see, Pakistan, as luck would have it, for them, is in the news for all the wrong reasons politically, socially, economically, and grappling with countless serious problems in all fields of human endeavor. Its institutions are dysfunctional, and overall, its internal politically stability status is fraught with danger. It is actually suffering an existential crisis, if I can use the word. Now, the current problems, we are not talking about the past, can be traced to Pakistan's former Prime Minister, the charismatic cricketer Imran Khan's dismissal from office in April 2022, ostensibly through a no confidence motion in their National Assembly, which I think everybody would agree was engineered backstage by the Pak army. For the once favorite of the army, Imran Khan fell from their grace. You see, no prime minister in Pakistan after in the early 50s when Ayub took over can shy away from the army. They have to follow the dictates of the army. Democracy is just a farce and a facade. Now, in May 2023, Pakistan, Imran Khan was arrested on countless trumped up charges. And this led to, as you also alluded to, serious and widespread lawlessness all over Pakistan, and even the ornate Lahore Corps Commanders house, which you just mentioned, and some other governmental assets. And imagine the Corps Commander of Lahore, 4 Corps, he's inside the high security Lahore cantonment. His house was burnt. Now, such lawlessness Pakistan had never witnessed before. Never. Now, coming to now, political instability continues, and Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf party workers went into though they do go into a rampage off and on. Now, all I would like to say is that till there is some political rapprochement between Nawaz Sharif and his brother Shehbaz Khan's PML, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, and Imran Khan as Tehreek-e-Insaf party, but with the blessings of the all Pakistan army, this grave political instability will continue to plague Pakistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan's economic woes need to be also brought out. It is facing a very, very severe financial crisis with its external fiscal debt rising to, if I'm correct, current figures, $123 billion, of which $78 billion they have to clear by the end of the year. And they barely have a little over a month's foreign exchange reserves to survive. You see the pitiable condition of the Pakistani people. Some of us did see in the Pakistan TV itself, when Eid took place last time, poor men, old people taking, a bag full of atta or grain to their houses, they're being snatched away. So this is the unfortunate state of Pakistan, which I'm really surprised that the Pakistani deep state, who are having a ball in Pakistan, they've got huge lands, staying for 5 to 7-star luxury. Their children and the grandchildren are studying abroad. When will they learn? Pakistan has to learn these lessons for themselves. Forget about India. They have to learn for themselves.
Thank you, sir. Afghanistan used to be considered as Pakistan's, depth, strategic depth. much has changed with the way the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Afghani Taliban have been targeting Pakistan Army. How do you see this playing out?
Right. Thank you. That's a very pertinent question. As we all know, for decades, Pakistan has been striving towards its ill-conceived concept of achieving strategic depth vis-a-vis India and Afghanistan. It's totally an inconceived concept. And if you look at currently, totally outdated and of no use. Now, the Taliban, in its second stint with power, after the US's haphazard and ill-planned and hasty exit from Afghanistan in August 2021, has by now freed itself from the coattails of Pakistan and the ISI. The TTP is well aligned with the Taliban, that is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It's well aligned with the Taliban. And the TTP, as you know, has been attacking Pakistan Army units and other assets of the Pakistan Army and causing many casualties. Now, the Pakistani complains that the TP derives a lot of strength from the Afghan Taliban, and their logistics are well catered for inside Pakistan, and they have bases, that is TTP, inside Afghanistan. Now, this problem for Pakistan, I feel, is bound to continue, and that is why it is not. And the reason is that they're not finding much support inside Afghanistan. They had their warlords in the pocket in the earlier days, but now the Pakistani army is devoid of any support, any terrorist support inside Afghanistan. So what have they done? Amazingly, the Pakistan army is joined with the ultra-fundamentalist and radicalist armed Islamic State in Khorasan, which we refer to as ISIK. Now, these elements, they're slowly gathering strength in Afghanistan, and they will try to ultimately spread towards South Asia, what they call the Khorasan province. The Taliban, fortunately, does not get along well with the ISIK, and India should thus remain in touch with Taliban regarding the nefarious activities of ISIK towards India and other nations of South Asia. And now, as you know, border skirmishes along the Durand Line, which is the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, are also taking place. And only last month, the Pakistani Air Force carried out an aerial strike against terror elements inside Afghanistan, something which was unheard of in the Pak-Afghan relations, and nobody could imagine that the Pakistani Air Force will go for targets inside Afghanistan. Of course, the Afghanistan too have retaliated against some ground targets inside Pakistan.
Now, another very major development there is that Baluchistan, which there's been a Chinese presence there, but before that also they were suppressed. The Baluchis were being suppressed very, very hard, by the Pakistan army, and they've undergone a lot of suffering at the hands of Pakistan army, and a lot of exploitation. We know about Baluchi armed groups that were active, but of late they've been able to hit Pakistan army pretty hard. How do you see this? And it is one more factor here is Gwadar, which is which is supposed to be a port of great advantage. It's in a very pathetic state. It's been flooded. There's water crisis, and I'd invite your thoughts on this, sir.
Yeah. You see, Baluchistan was annexed by Pakistan in early 1948. Actually, people don't know this figure. Now, since then itself, there has been a simmering Baluchi nationalism feeling among the Baloch people. As we all Baluchistan is a mineral-rich province in its
Yes.
southwest, which has the largest landmass, nearly, I think, if I'm figures are correct, 44% or so. But and the Pakistanis, and Balochistan is rich in gold, copper, many other minerals. But Pakistan has not plowed back the revenues commensurate to Baluchistan's size or the revenues generated by Baluchistan itself. So naturally, the Baluchi people have always felt like, third-rate citizens. And imagine that the Baluchis are by and large Sunni Muslims, and yet they have been given a kick in the backside by the Pakistanis, which also goes to show that it is not only religion which is the binding factor, but many other things itself. Now, the Baluch struggle for freedom has seen many ups and downs. Sectarian, ethnic, separatist violence over the years has been escalating. You mentioned about the Gwadar port very correctly. Now, Pakistan is developing this with Chinese help in this province, and the Baluchis have targeted Chinese workers in Baluchistan. And in a Baluch attack in August last year, 73 people were killed when police stations, railway lines were attacked. In 2024 itself, last year, 383 soldiers and 925 fighters were killed. Now, that's a large number. Now, can you imagine in January this year, there have been 2 attacks on Pakistani units, and just last fortnight, 18 paramilitary soldiers of the Pakistani Frontier Corps and 24 Balochis were killed. Now, as is widely known, Pakistan has been more than heavy-handed, even with the peaceful protesters in Baluchistan. Now, youngsters, able-bodied personnel who are doing nothing but just going about their day-to-day tasks, they're picked up without reason, and nothing is heard about them later. I feel, that the Baluchi people have made their mind to fight for their freedom and have now resorted to killing labor, some, people coming from the other provinces of Pakistan. They established roadblocks on the highways and all, and they, stop buses coming from Sindh or Lahore and something, see the identity cards, and if you're a non-Baloch, the Balochis are now paying back the other Pakistani people from other provinces in the same coin. This is to discourage non-Baluchis coming to Baluchistan. And Baluchistan rather the Baluch people have also targeted the Chinese a couple of times because they don't want the CPEC to come. And also they feel that if Gwadar comes, and the Chinese will have a huge military presence, and in any case, the employment will not come to the Baluchi people, but it'll come to the other people of Pakistan, mostly from Punjab, which I think perhaps would be a correct feeling.
Then, we've had some Balochis who come visited India, and we've heard from them how things have been, and another very major change that's taken place is that the Afghani Taliban has started getting, expressed a very positive, made very positive moves towards India, which have been, very positively replied back through the External Affairs Ministry, and with Mr. R.K. Mishri going there. I think there are the beginnings of a relationship which may be worth building upon, because here now comes it's nothing like having the Afghans have always had a soft corner for Indians. Way back, it was the same country, the part of the same. That was a part of India also. We won't go into that, but there's certainly we remember the scenes that that were seen as soon as the Taliban was cleared out from Afghanistan the first time. Hindi movies, and a lot of Indian things started getting very popular in Afghanistan. However, the closeness between the Afghani Taliban with also the Iranians, that can be, how do you see this, sir?
Yeah, and that's a very important, significant question you have asked and hinted at how improvement in relations with the Taliban will help everybody in the region, maybe except Pakistan and China. You see, now India has warmed up to the Taliban in the last year or so, and India's latest diplomatic outreach to the Afghan Taliban government signals a very significant shift in how India sees the geopolitics taking shape in the region. You see, external affairs policies can never be static and should not be static. Now, after Kabul fell to the Taliban after the chaotic exit of the Americans from Afghanistan, India, let's say, did suffer a sort of diplomatic and strategic setback. And as is known, India and Afghanistan, which you also alluded, have had civilizational and historical links. And no matter who was in power in Kabul, whether monarchy, whether so-called democracy, whether anybody else, India has been widely respected by the Afghan people for its generous developmental aid, as also its no strings attached humanitarian and development aid. Now, many landmark projects in Afghanistan, like the building of the new parliament, the hospitals, the dams, power infrastructure, schools, roads, and what have you, they've been built by India with no strings attached. No strings attached.
Very major roads,
and the
Dilaram's Ranch.
Yeah, absolutely. And what has happened is that our aid by now, if my figures are correct, India's aid to Afghanistan has been to the tune of $3 billion US. By now interacting with the Taliban administration in Kabul, what has India done? As some analysts all over the world have opined, that we have granted de facto legitimacy to the Taliban. The Taliban has reached out to nearly 40 nations and is trying to establish diplomatic and economic links with these nations. So far, as you would know, no nation has actually accorded them officially a diplomatic status to them. They are in various degrees of interaction with them, except China, who have posted a Chinese ambassador in Kabul. As you know, the Chinese are off the starting blocks much faster than the others, which one should remember that. Overall, it's been a pragmatic step, I feel, to establish cordial relations with the Taliban government. Of course, Pakistan would be most unhappy as the development will dampen their terror activities to some extent against India. Now, in addition, India must endeavor to have an India-Iran-Afghanistan axis to encourage economic activities through the Chapar port, which you mentioned, and develop road connectivity through Afghanistan and onto the Central Asian republics, to Russia, and ultimately Europe. It'll be for the region's good. So there's no denying it. Chapar port is important to us. We must sink in a little more money if it's required and ensure that the connectivity, which will answer the Chinese CPEC and the border roads, and their ambitious CPEC project, we also must indulge in this and ensure connectivity onto the Central Asian republics.
No, sir, I'm glad you brought out Chabahar, because that is a very major Indian effort there. It's a lot of development of Chabahar has been done by India, and in fact, this Delaram Zaranj road is it's a road made by Border Roads.
Border Roads Organization. Absolutely.
It was very, very sort of warmly received when when it was completed. And this, I think, Chabahar should be able to provide. It will make a great difference to Afghanistan's economy. By getting these road routes from Chabahar to the Central Asian republics, which you very pertinently mentioned. But this, I think, this triangular, our India coming close to Taliban, and both India and Afghani Taliban teaming up with Iran, I think should be. Do you see this as a good counter to Pakistan?
Absolutely. I've always believed, you see, Iran is a very strategic neighbor of ours. They've been also giving to us oil. And India is a very big country. We don't have to follow, strategic autonomy. We've always adopted right from our inception of the Indian Republic. So if we are getting closer to the Americans, great. The point remains that if they tell us about Iran or even for Russia, we have to just tell them, okay, old boys, this is in our national interest. We're not interfering with any of your interests. And if we take oil from Russia or from Iran, it is not going to, bother you or hamper you or do anything contrary to your regional or global interests. So India must remain firm, and also we must ensure some form of morality in international global politics.
No doubt, sir. No doubt. We must remain, as we have in the past, remain firm on what is our interest in the region. By all means, we must. It's time we made the best of the relationship with the US, which with Mr. Trump, it is hoped will fetch us some. I mean, if he can get rid of that awful deep state that Mr. Biden had created, which has ruined Bangladesh to our great disadvantage. I mean, all this, one can only hope. Is there anything further you'd like to add, sir?
No, as far as you see, I always wish to say that, when we discuss in various seminars and all, that is there a way forward with Pakistan? And most people say, no, Pakistan is not going to change. And they're just not going to change. So we must give them back to them 10 times over. But I feel that, as the largest, the most powerful country in the South Asian region, in the Asian region, and an emerging global power, India must have broad shoulders and try to get them back on track. If they don't, and they indulge in any terror activities, then we will give it back to them in a very befitting manner. But however, India has to reach out to all nations in South Asia, in particular, our neighborhood. And now this Bangladesh crisis, which has come up, is of serious concern of ours. And of course, the Pakistanis and the Chinese, to some extent, well, not some extent, to a large extent, will try and, vitiate matters in the South Asian region. And we hope that we don't have now a third front to counter. So I would like to say that India must get the South Asian neighborhood closer and harmonize them to, for mutual benefit.
Thank you very much, sir, for bringing a lot of very important points out. Thank you and all the best, sir.
Thank you very much. My pleasure entirely. Thank you. Good night. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.